Hi, my name's John Paul. I'm AAA's car doctor and the president of the New England Motor Press Association. And I think about 50 years ago, the Honda Civic came out. And back then it was a pretty basic car, little two-door car. As I remember, kind of wind-up windows, pretty basic interior. And that has all changed for the 2022 model year. And with us is Chris Martin, the technology, regulatory, and legal communications manager. Chris, am I even close with that?
It's a pretty close approximation. Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Yeah. But and is it in fact true that the Civic is about 50 years old?
Yeah, so 1973 was really the beginning, and since then the Civic has evolved, as you noted, from a very small, simple, basic form of transportation with really high quality into something that is about the size of an Accord, maybe 8-10 years ago. So it's grown in size. It's also grown in the number of variants that have been offered over the years. We've had a variety of different styles, hatchbacks, 2 doors, 4 doors, all of those sorts of things. For the 2022 model year, we have 2 primary configurations, which is the sedan and a 5-door hatch. And those are the 2 that we have shown off so far to some extent. There's more to come because Civic carries a lot of water for Honda around the world as one of our best-selling vehicles. There's also going to be an SI performance version of the Civic coming. And then really at the very top of the pyramid is the Type R, which the Civic Type R is really a world-class performance sports car. And that vehicle has been very popular in the prior generation, and we anticipate breaking new ground with it again, but a little too early to talk about that one.
Yeah. It was interesting. While I had the Civic, there was a young guy, probably easily half my age, and he was driving a Type R, the last generation Type R, and he came kind of over and said, "Hey, is that the new Civic? Can I take a look at it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, if I could take a look at your Type R over there." So it is interesting how kind of generationally the cars kind of trade back and forth with what people really like and enjoy about them. One of the things I was really interested in is the safety technology that's in the latest Civic. Can you give us an idea what's going on with that?
Sure. Honda's had a really long history of looking at safety. If you consider our beginnings in automobiles, we really started with small cars. And it was a big concern internally at Honda. How do you put a small car on the American roads with all of these large vehicles and make them safe to drive? So a big area of research for Honda has been compatibility. So we really led the development of compatible body structures between small cars and big cars. So we have this body structure called ACE that's been around, and it's been evolving, getting better as technology is wont to do over the years. And the current Civic was developed in Japan, or the 2022 Civic was developed in Japan at a facility that has really, at the time when it was opened, was world first multi-directional crash facility. And the idea is that you can crash vehicles of different sizes at multiple different angles into each other and see how they perform, and then figure out if you're getting, injuries in those various crash modes. So Honda really has innovated in that area to make small cars, compatible and safer against larger vehicles. And contrary side of it, we also now make large vehicles, so we want to make them safe with the smaller vehicles. So, there's a certain social responsibility involved with driving a larger vehicle. We want to make sure that our customers know that, that we're doing what we can to try to minimize the impact when they do have an unfortunate collision with another vehicle. Civic-wise, the current Civic, one of the first things I'd like to talk about with safety is avoiding a crash.
Yeah.
That's the key thing that we're really focusing on in the future is adding technology to the vehicle to really prevent crashes altogether. We build a lot into the car if you do get into a crash But the first line of defense really is the driver at this point, is what can they see? And we've done a lot to improve the visibility with the 2022 Civic. We've pulled the A-pillars back to improve sight lines out the sides. There's places where maybe you can't see a pedestrian about to step off the curb in some cars because the A-pillars are wide or the angle of them is such. So we've pulled those back. We've flattened out the dash. We've recessed the windshield wipers down. We've done other little things like pull the mirrors off of the A-pillars and put them on the doors down lower, the side mirrors, so that you can get a much more unobstructed view toward the front of the car and to the sides. And, you'd be surprised, sit in the prior generation Civic and then sit in this one back to back, and you go, wow, you really feel like you're more in the environment. You feel like you're more outside. A much more airy, open cabin is a nice feeling in the cabin, but the side effect for safety is you get a better visibility and a better view towards things. That's sort of step one, is the driver seeing things and being able to react to them. But as a backup, we also have advanced driver assistive systems. One of them that has really, I think, prevented a lot of crashes since it was introduced is automatic emergency braking, Honda's system. But essentially, it's a system that looks out towards the front of the car, and if it determines that you're about to get into a crash, it will do its best to either stop you or slow you down enough to reduce the damage that you're going to do. So that's a system that's present on a lot of modern cars. We have made it standard on Civic for the past couple of generations, and we're basically, as of the end of this year, I think we're going to have it standard on nearly everything in the Honda lineup. Is the Honda sensing system. That includes the AEB, includes an adaptive cruise control system to be able to control, how far away from the car in front of you want to go when you're on a road trip. It actually is capable now of doing something called traffic jam assist, where it can assist with the steering inputs and assist with starting and stopping the vehicle all the way down to a stop. So not quite automated yet. We're not at that level. The driver still needs to maintain control, but it helps reduce fatigue in a driving situation. A tired driver is not really the safest driver. So if you're on road trips or in a traffic jam, anything that kind of makes that easier, I think keeps you a little bit safer.
Yeah, I always thought about these systems as sort of a team approach, where the driver is still the quarterback, if you will, and the car is the rest of the team. And even as these features advance and get better and better, it's still no substitute for a fully engaged driver. So the idea of all of this working together and working to help the driver in those times where maybe they're not quite as sharp as they could be makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, and a big improvement for from 2021 to 2022, the new Civic, is we've improved the angle that the front-facing camera can view. And we've added a faster processor. So a lot of this is computer driven, obviously, but how well the computer does at recognizing potential crashes, things like pedestrians, bicycles, all of those sorts of things. Often that it really comes down to how fast the computer is and how good is it at recognizing those potential things. So we've improved the computer system. We've widened the angle that the camera can view in an attempt to really better detect all the potential crash scenarios, including, as I mentioned, pedestrians, cyclists, things like that. Because Honda's goal is to not just keep the people in the car safe, but keep the people in the environment safe from the car. So if the system detects a potential crash involving a pedestrian or a bicyclist, we want the car to be able to warn the driver, and if necessary, apply the brakes to try to mitigate that crash as much as possible.
And as we kind of progress through this, there is going to be the time with all the technology and all the driver skill together, it still wasn't enough, and you do get into a crash. How are the new airbag systems designed to try to help mitigate any of those injuries that could happen in a crash?
Yeah, so this new Civic has 10 airbags in it. which is amazing, for a car that really is, basically at our entry level for the brand. To have 10 airbags standard in that car, I'm pretty proud of that accomplishment. But two of those airbags are very notable. The two frontal airbags, which really do, most of the work in a lot of crashes, because frontal collisions are still the ones that tend to have, really the most serious injuries involved, because there's a lot of crash energy. The two front airbags are now designed with innovative designs to reduce crash, really brain injuries. If you get into a crash and you're straight on vehicle to vehicle, you're going to go forward into the airbag. But as we know, in the real world, there are a lot of different ways that cars crash. They don't all always go perfectly straight into a barrier or into another car. Often there are angles involved. So if a car comes into a collision at an angle, often your head is going to twist one way or the other, and you may miss that airbag. You may miss the sweet spot. Imagine it like a catcher's mitt. You want the baseball to go right in the middle of it. If it goes off to the side, often it's going to pop out of the glove. These airbag systems are designed to better handle those angles. So if you come into the airbag system at an angle, it's going to do a better job of directing you towards the center and reducing that likelihood of your head twisting. There are a lot of serious neck injuries and serious brain injuries that occur in those angled crashes that really haven't been properly addressed in the past, because frankly, we didn't have data until fairly recent history on that type of brain injury. But once that data became available and some modeling was done to determine what was causing it, that freed us up to begin developing this new generation of airbags. And really the first one of these airbags was in the Acura TLX, which launched last year. And that was on the passenger side only to account for this. But what the Civic has done now is this is the first vehicle to have both driver and passenger airbags that can account for that type of crash. And it really just, it does a better job at straight on frontal collisions, and it does a much better job at all of the potential angles that you might encounter in a frontal crash.
Yeah, it is so true about a crash. I mean, everybody thinks a crash is a crash, but it's the car hits something, you hit the inside of the car, and your internal organs hit the inside of you. And if you can slow that down and keep yourself properly positioned, like you said, in sort of the sweet spot of the airbag, that's going to protect your brain and minimize any potential injuries. So,
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yep. And then, two other things. We've added standard knee airbags to the Civic, and then we've also added standard rear side airbags. Side airbags have been around for a long time on the front seats of cars, but not, outside of, high-end luxury cars, you really haven't seen them in the back seats. So now, if you have rear seat passengers, you can rest a little bit easier that they also have a similar level of protection to what you would get sitting in the front seat.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Before we let you go, we talked all about sort of the serious parts of the Honda Civic, but still clean. The interior is very contemporary looking. All the features that you'd come to expect in today's cars, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Again, it's a car that is went from 50 years ago, a very basic transportation, to features that wasn't that long ago. You only saw in a luxury car.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, it's tracking with customer expectations. Our customers have a much higher level of expectation for a compact car than they've had in the past. And, the Civic has been the benchmark for many years within compact cars, entry-level compact cars. And, we have to keep up with our customers' expectations. And really, it's a competitive environment. There are several good cars remaining in the segment, and we want to keep Honda in leadership position. And I think we've done it with this new Civic. There's a lot going on there. As you noted, the interior design, I think, is one of the key differentiators between the Civic and other vehicles in the segment. Not that their interiors are bad, but this was really done very thoughtfully, with a little bit of retro styling, I would argue, in there. If you look at some of our vehicles back from the 70s, you might see some design cues in there, but as you noted, in a really contemporary way. One of the key things on the upper trims also is that the center instrument panel is now all digital, which allows you to do a lot of customizing as to what you can see and how it appears behind the steering wheel. As you're looking, traditionally you're looking at a speedometer and a tachometer, but there's a lot of other information now that can be displayed there in a place that allows you to not take your eyes so much off of the wheel. So,
well, Chris, I want to thank you for taking a little time out of your day and joining us on this car conversation. And if people want to learn more about the Civic, including is it for sale yet? I guess the 2022 Civic, is it actually in the dealers now?
The sedan is on sale. We've revealed the hatch, what it looks like, but the hatch is not yet on sale. And then upcoming, we haven't yet talked too much about Civic Si or Type R, so stay tuned for more news on those.
Stay tuned for that. And if people want more information, Honda's website is?
Honda's website is automobiles.honda.com, or you could just go to honda.com and then you'd see all the stuff we make, including jets and motorcycles and all that cool stuff.
All right. Hey, Chris, thanks again for taking some time.
Yes, you're welcome. Enjoyed it.